got the right one that fits in here really nicely. So that probably will be fine. I think I will just cut it right off. So I have ratchet strapped up the muffler, and then down here, if we flip on the run switch right here, and do run. So it's finally time to work on the exhaust, because we have our 4 exhaust ports there, 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 and there. Back when I did the steering, I made sure I could get the steering shaft right between both of those 2 ports right there, so I didn't have any interference with that. I hope I don't have to modify that. But here is our existing manifold that goes up into here and would go up there like that. I have a few issues. One is that this manifold is originally designed to come out here and then go straight underneath the engine. Notice there is something else right there. Both the steering and the front differential are right there, and obviously some frame stuff. For this, somehow I'm gonna have to extend it out maybe a little bit, but definitely I'm gonna have to extend it down a bit more, because all 4 exhausts merge down to 1 right here. So if it merges, it needs to be right around here-ish. I know I'm gonna lose ground clearance. I already have around 10 inches ground clearance, and this is around 4 inches thick. So I'm losing about 4 inches of ground clearance. So I'm gonna have about 6. This has got street tires on it. It's not like I'm gonna be doing crazy jumps really, so I'm not terribly worried about that. I am sad that I'm losing ground clearance, but that's just kind of how it's gonna have to be, I guess. But, so the muffler, once it does merge down here, it goes all the way to the back, and that's where this muffler is going to connect to, hopefully around the area that the hitch is supposed to go. Now this tubing right here doesn't already have enough length to be extended, the 1.5 and 2.25 inches. So I went and picked up 4 feet of 2.25 and another 4 feet of 1.5. This is all stainless steel. I was gonna do mild steel, but might as well get the right stuff for this. And since I want this to look better than the rest of my welds, getting this welded together, I decided to do some TIG welding on this. However, since I originally planned to do mild steel to stainless steel, I bought 309 stainless steel TIG rod. And that's because this is supposed to be more temperature resistant, because of the 2 different types of expansion coefficients. However, since this is stainless steel, I probably could get away with 308. That's, you know, what it's designed for. But since I have 309, I'm going to be using 309. No, I've never TIG welded stainless steel before, so it will probably still look terrible. So I'm going to mess around with cutting this up and see how I can get this manipulated a little bit with some of the new tubing so I can fit around all this new extra stuff. So I measured pretty much how much I have to add. It looks around like 4 to 6 inches each. I've marked each of them in as straight as line as I possibly could by lining them up. So I'm now gonna take the angle grinder and cut there, 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 and there. This makes me really sad because I actually really wanted to keep this intact, but there's no way. Well, I'm screwed. I am actually screwed. It's not 1 tube. Oh no. Why the heck is it 2 tubes? Why the heck do they have all this collector stuff down here if there's 2 tubes? Why do they do that? Is it an aesthetic thing? That's 1-inch tubing on the inside. I don't even know how they make this manifold with 2 tubes. See how these 2 inner tubes here can join and these 2 outer tubes can join right here? Oh wow, I figured it out. These cross beams right here, they're welded in half on each side. So they welded the 2 inner tubes down to here or whatever they did down. Then they slipped the 2 outer tubes on with the notch already cut out of them. Welded the tube that crosses between them, and then welded the cap on each side over them. Why the heck would they go to all that effort to cover? I mean, is it heat? Is it heat dissipation? I mean, it's already exposed. So why would they be trapping heat inside? To make them look bigger? Is it aesthetic? Because this now leaves me to the challenge of, do I cut off the rest of the 3 of them? Well, obviously I have to cut the rest of the 3 of them off. Do I just weld these 2 together and then just put the tube extension on the outside one and just hope that the tube getting bigger and then smaller again is not going to cause any issues? Because it will. So I think I'm going to have to do is I'm going to cut back this outer casing a little bit down more on both sides so I can expose the inner tube a little bit better. I'm going to have to buy 1-inch diameter stainless steel tubing. That's going to take probably a week to get here. For now, I think I'm just going to have to cut the other 3 of them and mock up the whole underneath system because, oh my god, I didn't even account for that. What if the rest of the muffler stuff is also like that? Okay, looking down the exhaust here, the sidewall is really, really thin, so I assume that is that size tubing as you see it. So I'm not gonna worry about that. I finished cutting the rest of these off, all 4 of them. I did make sure to number them because they are angled very specifically that I want to make sure that they stay in the same one. So here's tube number 1 for cylinder 1. And so that'll go up into here, but notice it does not clear enough down here. Obviously it wouldn't because that's where the tubes originally went. So what I think I'm gonna end up having to do is remount all of these tubes back up into here, take some measurements, temporarily mock this up here, and see what kind of angle it would take to make it from here down to here. So I've remounted these guys up there loosely. Notice how number 2 is a hair away from hitting the steering. And all 4 of them are angled straight at the steering rack. So obviously that's an issue, but cut it again up here, right where the angle starts tapering off. So it's mainly a straight section. And then I'll extend the tubing out a little bit then. And I'll extend it maybe 2 inches so it clears here. So it come out, go straight down, back into the pipe as it was before, and then go back down. So we'll be extending it outwards and down. I think that's probably the best idea. I'm gonna take these off, mark them, cut them again, and cross my fingers that I have enough 1.5" tubing to both pull it out and have it be extended down. So here's pipe number 1. So that's been cut. Yeah, there is in fact that tube on the inside. Somehow I need to readapt this so I can weld to the inner pipe, even though I really don't want to. I'll probably have to cut back some more there. Without giving too many spoilers, let's just say I have another exhaust that is on a very similar engine, and the exhaust is all this size tubing. It's all 1-inch tubing. I just thought that maybe this year was a bigger size tubing, but nope, they sheathed it, so weird. Well, while I figure out the front exhaust stuff, I figured I might as well replace the bearing and that's in this one, because that one that's wobbly. Let's take the tire off and see where that wobble is coming from. Well, I would say it's coming from right there. Nope, that bearing is gone. Oh my goodness. I don't know how much that comes across camera, but like, do you see how much movement there is there? So yeah, the bearing is gone, absolutely gone. So those bearings are like 20 bucks for a set of 2, I think, which is not that bad. So I'm gonna put these rear bearings also in my order list. I guess I should just put this all back on because I need to still roll this around. Oh, hold up, there is still a decent amount of motion in there. There's less. Let me just give it one more. Maybe it was a pretension issue. No, because that's on there tighter than it should be, and that's still... And it's still moving around way more than it should. But I also just lifted this up a little bit, and besides the shocks not having any bushings... Oh, I need to get shocks for this. Okay, well that's also gonna go in the order. This is going to be more of an expensive video than I thought. The bushing right here for this top joint is also completely gone. Yeah, I can see there's no rubber in, so this is just kind of wobbling in there. However, this joint down here and the one right behind it, A-arm, or doesn't look like an A, but it's basically an A-arm, is those bushings look to be not great, but existent, which is more than I can say for these and the shock right up there. So 2 new rear bearings, new bushing, new shock, already 2 different size exhaust pipe, and a 3rd one, I guess, on the way. Oof. So I just went around the whole thing and looked at all the bushings that were missing or worn out, all that extra, you know, little bits of stuff. Rear shocks, all the bushing, and the exhaust tubing is now on order. So that's great, I guess. And that was also a good chunk of change. So if you can, like and subscribe. This is just a money pit for me, but it's a fun one. So I guess while I wait for all of that, I will clean all this up and start doing electrical, because, well, everything else I'm waiting on. So this is the key. Unfortunately, it's basically riveted to the front fork mount. So I just drilled that out with a 1/2-inch drill bit, and that just comes right out. So now I just reduced that massive chunk down to just this, because that's all I need for the key. As you can see, I have been stripping back some of the sheathing on a lot of this wiring harness. It's really weird how much of this stuff loops back to itself. Like this battery connector loops all the way down to the rear wiring harness, and technically it plugs in right here, which is a ground to the engine, even though this goes to like the rear wire harness, which, you know, should go like way back there. So when you undo it, it just kind of unravels, and for some reason it goes, you know, all the way up to the tachometer. It just kind of seems weird that plug that goes straight next to the battery go all the way to the back, given the battery used to be like here and the taillight used to be like right, so they're close to each other. But for this, it just kind of loops all the way back around. This isn't the only ground line, there are multiple. Every black white one is a ground, and there's like another 3 right here, 4, 5, 6 right there. So the amount that loop back on itself is really interesting. But I'm going through and just kind of seeing where things go, planning out what I want to do. Like, this is the rear brake light. I think these are the turn signals for the rear. So I want to keep that, but for some reason, you know, it tees off right here at the front, and I need this to go all the way to the rear. Figure out where I want things to mount. I do like the spot underneath the seat for the fuse box, the CDI box, and the battery. So the contactor, all this stuff will probably go back there. I want that away from all the engine heat and everything, so as far as I can get that back. So yeah, I am gonna probably have to do a decent bit of extensions on this stuff, but that is part of it, and I'll probably make like a master connector between all of it. Yeah, make this a lot simpler than it is, because this is, look at this mess. So it stopped raining, and I've never done TIG on stainless steel before, so let me put my glove on before I forget that this is hot. So this is the 309 stainless steel TIG rod, and I heard that that was really good for high expansion rates, really high temperature applications for stainless steel. And as someone who's never done a successful like TIG weld before, like I tried aluminum as my first thing I ever tried the TIG, and I've never made like a successful full weld before. I would say for stainless, I feel like that's not that, I mean, it's obviously not the greatest, but I don't feel like that's the most terriblest I've ever seen. So that was at, I think, 65 amps at 120 volt DC TIG, and I feel like that's not as bad as I could have done. Now I have to take off the flange that's mounted to the engine and try and do that to the other side and see how that goes. I can see that in order to get it spaced out far enough from up here, you know, to go all the way out, is almost exactly 2.5 inches to get it lined up to where these are right now. Now I think these look pretty good right here, but they are really close to these rubber boots right here, and well, just into the steering rack in general. So I don't know if I should move this out another 1/2 inch. We have about 3/4 of an inch between here and here. I am going to eventually do heat wrapping on this stuff, you know, to make sure that all the heat really stays within that and not, you know, next to, you know, the oil cooler and whatnot. However, though, that is where it used to be next to the oil cooler, so I don't really know, you know, how much that really matters. Like, look how close that is. That's like 1 inch, and that's, like I said, that's factory. So I cut this to length. I just did little tacks all around it. I know not the greatest, big blob right there, but still, it's just tacked in place a little bit. You can see I cut the sheathing back a little bit more so I can get some more access. I maybe cut a little bit too much. We'll find out later if that's really an issue. That looks good. I'm gonna finish up welding that all the way around, and we'll see how that fits onto there. Like, I came in just at the right time because, oh, that covers up, because it just started raining. So yeah, I just kind of shoved everything into the garage so I can look at the exhaust a little bit. I'm still welding this one and there. You can see I am getting way better at it than, you know, my little bits of dot and a lot more melted out. It is a lot like soldering, where you have to control where the heat goes, and it'll go, and the metal will melt out to where you add heat. So you just put a little blob in the middle, and you touch a little bit up here and touch a little bit down here with the heat, and it just kind of melts outwards. A lot easier than I thought. This was the second one I did, and you can see that that's a little bit blobular, but hey, it is good on there. This one here was the first one, worse, but I am slowly getting better at it, and now you can see we have 2 of the exhausts mounted on there. So now I just have to finish welding those up and adding in the last 2 middle exhausts. So all the exhaust port mounts are welded onto their 2.5 inch extensions, then onto their about, I think, like a 60-degree angle-ish, then onto their, I don't know, it just fit length tube, onto the rest of the manifold. And it is all finished being welded on from there to there. It's funny, these look decent, that looks okay, those look really good, but these came out terrible. And I think it's just because of how I had to get the torch in between these two. That's still hot. And blah, blah, blah. You can see there's more flash rust on these two for some reason. So I figured I should mount this up. And well, the 2 outer ones fit perfectly. Those 2 center ones, this one is like 1/8 of an inch down, and that one's like 1/4 of an inch down. So I guess at some point of it heating up, it shrank down a little bit. And it's actually a little bit worse than that. It's that now that I finished welding these 2, like, oh, I can't see it really, but I hold this should be down more. So at some point they've all kind of squished in like this, and we're about an extra like whole inch away from here than we were before. So I think this is going to extend to a day 3, to where I'm going to have to cut the backs of these just a little bit, widen it a little bit more open, get it back in, and then tack them while it's in place again at that little bit of a better angle, and then weld the back of the again, which is what took forever the first time. Alright, so I said screw it. I'm gonna do it now because I don't like waiting another day. So I don't know if you can see that right around here. I made a cut there, and I bent them up just a little bit. And now, I lean this at the right angle. I sit at the right angle. Okay, that one, they all line up. So I'm gonna press up again as much as I can. Get these things screwed in. Oh right, I have a jack here. Oh, there. That went in a lot easier than I was trying to earlier. So I'll just screw these all in, and then I guess whenever I feel like it, I'll get the TIG welder out again, re-weld up those 2 little cuts I did right in the back there. So it's all mounted up, it's all tightened on except for one screw because I need to retap the hole for it. So it's on there. Honestly, I don't like the look of it. Now I wish I could do something about it, but I can't. This is just kind of have to be how it's going to be, because honestly I don't know how else I could get the exhaust to the back besides directly under here. I don't like how much it blocks everything, you know, back here. I mean, the view of it at least. So I guess at one point I'm gonna have to make this look better. I don't like how much this intrudes front, but again, can't do much about that. And I don't really like how much it looks like a radiator, you know, for how long all this tubing is. It's just going to be how it's going to be. As you can see, I took off the rest of the electrical tape that was on here, figured out where some extra things need to go. I've already made a few cuts and have figured out where they need to be moved to from down here up to here, because the same wire, doesn't matter if I plug it in down here or up there. So some of the stuff that is attached to the engine right there, I'm going to reattach right here. However, one thing that's not easy to just move is the battery connection. Now, even though this is black, this is actually the battery positive to the starter motor, and over here, which is even shorter of a cable, is the negative. So somehow I need to get this from here to underneath the seat, which is why I bought this, I believe it's 4-gauge motorcycle cable extensions, which obviously motorcycle engine is the right thing for it. So I will connect that to there, get that routed underneath there. It's important to note that the positive connector actually goes to here on the starter, and that also is not a negative, and we know that because the red there. So this red line technically goes to here on the starter, and then to that cable over there. And then this cable actually goes to the positive, unlike the ground, which actually goes to the negative on the battery, to here, the negative on the chassis. So I'll get these on, move around some connectors and stuff, and also put on some cable sheathing. As you see, I have 150 feet here of cable sheathing, and that's because I didn't really know what size I needed, and I need this stuff for the Leaf project as well. So we have 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch cable sheathing. So I will wrap up the rest of the cabling with that as well. But while I was doing that, I noticed, yeah, I see a little pink there. Yeah, I think that TIG welding did a little bit of a sunburn. Funnily enough, my right hand side is not really sunburnt at all, so somehow that side got a lot more sunburnt. Then again, this was the hand I was doing the filler rod with, so that was a little bit more exposed, but dang, yeah, I need to wear a longer sleeve for that. Now this probably still looks like a mess, but we can see that we have our battery cables in this 1-inch loom. Turned out it both need to be a 1-inch loom to fit all of those cables and the battery cables, because I did those separately because of their current. So all the stuff that goes to the rear, like the tail lights and stuff, I have to come to here. CDI box, contactor, fuses, and all that stuff. As we go up the line here, you can see that I have all of the connectors and everything that go to the engine right there. So these just lead out, loop down. I'll tidy this up. This is also the brake switch, so for the brake light, and that just plugs in right down there into the original brake switch. We have all of our headlights and our turn signals. I probably am going to be reusing that just because it's already there. And then over here we have all of our main connectors, like to our gauges as well as to our handlebar controls. Now the reason why I have this all in a tangled mess right now is because I got some stuff to replace that. For one, I got the simple little starter thing where you have our master. I'm probably gonna use that as the kill switch. We have our engine start, so that'll be starter, accessory 1, 2, and 3. So probably what I'll do is either I want to have the fuel pump, because I'm relocating the fuel pump. So either that'll be kill switch and fuel pump, or that'll be fuel pump and maybe lights, and then definitely one of these has to be the 4-wheel drive hubs, because remember, to get it 4-wheel drive, the front 2 hubs need to have a 12-volt signal sent to them. So that'll be one of these. So this needs to have all those wires routed to that. That came with some wiring as well as a 12-volt relay. I want to do some other stuff as well, so I bought 5 more relays. Since I only have the fuses that are on the motorcycle, I got some of these push-button fuses, so this can be mounted to the plate, maybe right below the switches. And these have little buttons that will pop out when they've been tripped. I got a pack that is, I believe, 5 amp increments from 5 all the way up to 30 amp. So that will be what I'm going to use to replace all the fuses for all the stuff that I'm going to add. So now, let me show you the tail light. Turn on the key. There we go, that's on. If we look at our little control panel here, if we press start, nothing happens. I haven't wired up the lights to either of these yet. None of these switches do anything yet. But if we flip this up, flick that, our engine starts. Without this flicked, the engine will not. So that's just some basic wiring from the old loom. Now what I have to do is go to the fuse box. I'm going to look inside of here. I have the headlight high, headlight low, ignition, signal, and tail light. I don't want to touch the ignition system, but the signal and tail light also both turn on when you turn the key. According to the manual, all three of those systems are separately turned on with the key turn. So I'll probably choose either the tail or the signal light. That way so I can also put relays for these three switches, as well as the other fuses that I showed you previously, because I don't know what I want to do on these, and I want to make sure that they have their own fuses, and I don't want to pull a lot of current through that fuse, so I'm going to put them on separate relays so they power directly from the battery through the fuse that I'm going to add. I want to make sure I do it on a fuse that has plenty of headroom. So I pulled the last fuse, fuse number 5, which is the tail light. I set my multimeter to current. Now if I put the multimeter in the place of the fuse, I can see the current through that entire circuit. The tail light comes on my dashboard comes on, and we're pulling 0.7 amps. So since that's 0.7 amps, and this is a 10 amp fuse, and I can tell this says made in Japan, so this is original, so we have headroom of about 9.3 amps. So I like to do that. Now I don't want to use this fuse for whatever output of those relays. Now I am going to run another battery line because whatever output I have might be higher than 10 amps. I certainly hope it wouldn't, but if that does go out, that pulls everything else with it. I don't want to be running that off of my gauge illumination fuse. So I'm going to put this back in, wire in those relays, and see from there how everything else is going to connect. And if I check fuse number 4, which is a signal fuse, I notice that the neutral light, the oil pressure light go off, but the backlight is still on. If I test through that, you can see that those lights come on, and we're drawing about 0.4 amps. So that leaves us also even more headroom of 9.6 amps, considering that is also a 10 amp fuse. And the reason why I like that one a lot more is because that wire is already right here. This wire actually is our kill switch. So if I tee off of that, and I assume that that is our positive, and we go to ground, I can see there's our 12 volts. And that's already accessible right here. And like I said, we even have more headroom. So I just went over to my lab bench power supply, gave this 12 volts, and notice that this guy pulls around 0.15 amps, which is around 1.8 watts at 12 volts. So let's say we have one relay that goes to the fuel pump and another 3 relays that go to these 3 switches. That's 4 relays at 0.15 amps. That's around 0.6 amps, which is plenty acceptable when we have a 10 amp fuse. Considering we're running around under 1 amp for that whole thing, I think would be fine. I made a quick trip to Harbor Freight because I picked up this ammo box, and the reason why is because it fits my battery absolutely perfectly in there. You can see we have a little bit of wiggle room. We can put some foam padding and whatever in there, but it fits in there nice, both in this configuration, that'll fit, as well as the one I originally showed you in this one. Not sure exactly how I want to mount it yet, but that's going to depend on how the wiring fits. So I do have 2-foot extensions on the battery connectors. You can see here's the negative terminal and here's the positive terminal that's being extended on here. And that red one comes out to the contactor and then back here. So these are close to each other. Those cables reach right around right here. And this box, I got the right one that fits in here really nicely. I actually want it in here like this. It's about 1.5 inches away from the shock. We're touching the bearing mount right here because I want to have this mounted to that somehow, and we're right up next the transfer case. We're still above the bottom of the frame. Hopefully I can be able to get all the electronics like the CDI box, the battery, the contactor, all that stuff in here, then maybe drill a hole or 2 on the side. But to get to that, I need to take off this tire, I need to take out that shock. So yeah, still not enough clearance, so let's get that out. Yep, I guess no bushing on this side either. As we noticed in the last video, the shock for that side is also... yeah, there's nothing. I'll just swing this up for the moment after looking at this for a minute. So I think I will actually surround maybe 3 or 4 of the corners with angle iron so this slots in. Now also, I'm supported on the bottom, so I'm not worried about the battery hitting this plastic and breaking it eventually. So this will like slot in here, and then all I have to do is make sure it doesn't slide out, because then I can slide this out as a whole if I really need. I believe this is 1 inch by 1 inch angle iron. Here's a little piece of it, so I can just put something like that, maybe notch it so I can get that a little bit closer up, and just weld 2 pieces to the top. And then since right here I want to have something a little bit more structural, so maybe here's some 1.5 inch, you know, put that down there, weld it to that side frame right there, and then just call that good, where I have 2 pieces at the top, 1 at the bottom, and then maybe I'll put another piece on the bottom so I can extend it, so I can put another angle iron on the other side closer to the shock. That'd probably be a pretty sane, good idea. So I just finished welding in these little brackets right here. So you can see how I cut a little notch right there and there. Same thing on the top two angle pieces right there. So those are the 1 inch and these are the 1.5 inch. It's the box, and because those notches, they fit just around that little thing right there. I did get a little bit of a burn mark there, but you can't see on the inside, and it's just a cosmetic thing. You can see the scrapes there. That's because of those 2 weld beads in the middle. This is 2 pieces that I've cut into a wedge shape. The reason why a wedge is because this is also a wedge. Now, you get it far back, it sits nice and snug. Top has a little bit of wiggle, but there's none in the bottom, so that's fine. See here, we still have those top connectors, so I still have to get this at this angle right here for it to slide down. And then that latches on. Obviously this still slides out. Somehow I have to figure out a way to keep it all the way in there, but that works well. Obviously the tire is not on here, so ooh, that's still hot. The top is still hot. But now I can measure the length of all these cables over here and figure out where the holes need to be, so I can figure out if the battery needs to be in this sideways position or vertical. I don't want to put it like that. I really want to see if I can get it in there like that, but again, this fits. It's just that latch and cable lengths really that what is my determining factor. I can get this battery now on. Oh, by the way, I've also relocated ground. Since the ground wire is like 6 inches short, positive wire is plenty long. Like, look at this, all this extra. What I did is I drilled and tapped a hole up here, mounted it to this frame rail, and then drilled and tapped a hole here, cable here as well. So we saved about 2 feet extra. Now I can actually finish tightening on these battery connectors. I've already drilled a hole in the side of the battery box here, with, you know, the test fit corrugated tubing, but that is going well. It looks like I'm gonna have to cut more of this corrugated tubing because I'm about a foot longer now. But anyway, I'll finish this up and see how far I can get. So the battery box is on. Obviously it's just kind of wedged in there still. But you can see that we have the battery upwards, we have the contactor here, CDI box right up here at the top, and all the flasher modules and everything are in there. The only thing that is not in there, that I was thinking I was going to put in there, is the fuse box. A, because this doesn't fit through a grommet hole in the side, and there's no plug in the back. That's just it. So what I think I'll do is I'll tuck these cables as far as I can inside still, and I'll mount the fuse box like here or somewhere externally, and I'll make sure it's weather shielded all up in the back here. I have the rear taillight stuff, which needs to be extended to go back further, and I'll change it to a smaller loom, a lot smaller. This also needs to be extended to the back. It's been raining continuously for the past 3 days, so I've just been doing little things here and there. I want to get back to exhaust considering it was raining earlier, but it's dry enough now that so I can do some TIG welding outside. But regardless, let's look over some of the things I did in that time that I was stuck in the garage because of the rain. I will note that I haven't been filming much of doing the wiring stuff just because, well, A, it's boring, and 2, it's really cramped in here. I've been like jumping over this thing just to get over here. But regardless, I did some cable extensions from the coils down to the actual plugs right here. Everything is in a cable loom. You can see all the looms that are under here. I do need that to get tied up a little bit more. I do need that a loom for the rear light. I just zip tied the motorcycle rear light back there just so I can see that it is turning on and stuff. We have our fuel line because I want to put the tank there, I think. That runs up to the front into the carbs that I have put these pod filters on. The reason why I'm using pod filters is I can't fit the original airbox. I have no other option than doing pod filters. Some of the wiring loom just sitting right here. I want to make a little enclosure for that, but for now, that's just there. I also quickly bent up some of this galvanized punch steel or whatever to make this speedometer mount. I also bent the mount a little bit right there so it's angled up a little bit more, and so we're not actually hitting the steering wheel bar back there. As you saw before, this is the quick release for the steering wheel, and as you can see down here, we have our key switch, we have our run switch, we have our starter motor. This will be fuel pump, 4-wheel drive, and then right now that'll be spare. That all does work, so if we turn on the key, you can see that our lights turn on. See that if I could have this spinning a little bit, that we could probably get it in first. Yep, that's second, and then back to neutral. And then down here, if we flip on the run switch and do run, that works just fine, and that would be fuel pump. Fuel pump is only on when the run switch is on. And the reason why there's a second dedicated switch is in case we want to empty the bowls of the carburetors, you know, run it without the fuel pump running. That way so those can get emptied. So if I was doing winter storage or whatever. But otherwise, this is just a piece of angle iron that I drilled a hole through and then put this collar tightened around for the key switch, and then I have a notch cut out of here, and I only have the bottom 2 screws in because I didn't want to weld a top plate yet in there until I was completely sure about my wiring. And clearly I have a relay just hanging there, so not quite done with that, but this will be for the fuel pump and then whatever other switches that I need. So that's basically all I've been doing, is just getting all the cables neatly, you know, tidied up, how this one loom splits into a second one so you can go down to the motor and everything, and this one goes up to all the controls and stuff. I did clean through the carbs once, and I cleaned it last time. There's a little bit of gas residue in the bottom because I put gas in it right after I cleaned it the last time. I ran it for a second and then just didn't empty it after that, but other than that, they were perfectly clean. Otherwise, everything is fine. The battery box is fully mounted in now. I am still gonna have to cut off those top tabs because I need to charge the battery last night, because apparently I killed the battery by accident, and I can't open this because of the tire, so I am gonna have to change that top mount. But regardless, this thing, right now, if I put gas into the carbs, it would run. It would be super loud because if we look underneath, the muffler, as you can see, ends right there. So no actual muffler, that's just the manifold. So right now, what I need to do is make the rest of the tubing that goes back and the rear muffler mount. Oh yeah, also, speedometer cable. Because these speedometer cables use the same kind of connectors on both ends as for four-wheelers and motorcycles and stuff. The original speedometer cable reaches and plugs straight in to the speedometer. So hopefully the number of rotations of the transfer case where it, you know, picks up off of matches with the RPM that this gauge would be reading. It probably won't. Right now, that'd be really cool if I could see that needle moving at all. So that is exciting. So yeah, so now time to get to the exhaust. Okay, so you see how there's a bend here and there's a bend here. Well, realistically, I need this all in one straight line. So I need to have the tube end up be around here. So somehow I need to remove that bend, and I think actually the manifold has a slight bend to it, so I need to clock this in the way that it bends it back. So I think it needs to be extended a few inches. I have 4 feet more of this exhaust tubing, as you can see right here. So I'm not worried about losing any. I think I will just cut it right off, see how this all fits up, and then, you know, clock everything the right angle, and then make a mount for this and re-weld the sections back together. So I'm going to start with cutting this here and this here to get rid of that little angle in there. That's still very, very hot. I will go test and see how this fits on the original manifold. Okay, so this angle is perfect for getting it back like aligned straight, because the manifold has it kicked out like that. Putting this back in, like re-straightens it out back, and it is pretty darn aligned straight through the vehicle. This guy, because it has to be mounted like this, it's good enough to where I can put a spacer in here and then a bolt through it. That one should be fine, but if you notice here, that one's sticking straight towards the ground, so I'm gonna have to cut that off real quick. So I jacked up the rear and made sure to secure enough at least to poke around up here. So I have ratchet strapped up the muffler, kind of where I want it. Obviously I need to lower it down a little bit, you know, so it's not touching the transfer case and, you know, transmitting heat straight into that. But for the moment, you know, I need it right there so, you know, I can strap it and it doesn't move around. I actually kind of like where it's at. I put it a little bit behind the hitch, that way so if I put a ball hitch right here, you know, it's going to stick down to right here and it'll kind of point to the left. As you can see, it's not going straight, so it should miss most of the ball hitch base. That should be tightened up to here and the ball will be up here. So I think that will clear just fine. See, plenty of room between here and over here. I like that. So now let's take a look at the side. You can see right here, that is where the manifold couples with the tube that we have across here. That's the mount that we kept. That's the mount that we removed. And right over here, that's the end of the muffler. So we need to have a tube go from here to there. And that looks about a little bit over a foot. So I'm gonna go measure that, cut the length of tubing that we need, and do some tacks. Pretty darn clean cut there. I don't mean to brag, but after doing all that exhaust welding, I think that came out spectacular. So, I mean, compared to all my other past welds, but, yeah, I barely had to add any filler rod at all. Yep, let's not look at the other side. Don't look at that side. Yeah, it looks awesome. Honestly, I'm pretty fed up with this thing. So, the outer 2 flanges fit all the way on. They fit flush all the way against. Ignore that one screw, I have to retap that hole still. These 2 center ones, now that I've re-welded them up again. Now, I gave a little preload, bent up, and I welded again, and it shrank down enough to where they go in the hole, but they don't push back far enough, to the fact where this is too far out now, to the fact that that moves back about 1/4 of an inch. And so now the muffler will not fit up into place, into the cavity. It just hit the crossbar down there. So, guess who's gonna have to take the manifold out again, cut the tubes off again, and then weld them back on again. That'll be the 3rd time for those 2 center ones. I'm sick of these 2 little ones right there. I don't know why. I even welded them while they were in place. You know, I spent the extra effort to weld in from the backside right here, and now it's still not fitting. So I guess on another day, because I'm fed up with this for today, I will take off that manifold again, cut it, re-weld it. I guess I'm just gonna have to give it even more preload than I expected, because I'm done with this for today. It's dark outside now, so I decided to pull off the manifold one more time, take a look at it. If we look down them, you can see that we're all at the same like level outwards, so I'm not worried about that. And you can really see it if I put this there, and the two outer ones fit really nice. It's those two inner ones. You can see that, yeah, that one is indeed like 1/4 inch out. That one's about 1/8 of an inch out. Kind of hard to show it on camera, but that one's good. That one's out 1/8, and then that one is also fine. Even though I cut them, pre-bent them outwards, and welded them back, it looks like they somehow shrunk back again. So somehow I need to bend it even further, weld it, and make sure it lines up with the rest of them. So I've made the cut there and cut there, just like I did before. And now, if I line this up to the very top of those, you can see that the two center ones are about 1/8 more, just over 1/8 more than they're supposed to be bent that way. So now I'm thinking if I weld it, it should pull back to center, because before I had it on center and I welded it and then it pulled back like you saw, about 1/4 and 1/8. So now if I weld them, it should pull back 1/8 again. If not, well heck. Yeah, just as a point of reference, I made one small tack. One. Okay, if I hold this up now, the middle two were pretty darn similar. Look how much that one's over. That one's right at the ledge. So, better if I put any more, it's just going to keep pulling back. So I'll have to monitor that. If it goes too far, obviously I need to bend it even further, tack it again. Yeah, it flexes a lot. So I finished welding this one up. I did a few heat cycles to bend in the place, but you can see that that one is actually bent back about 1/16 of an inch. So it's gone back down again. I don't know if that's going to cause me an issue, but that is really annoying. That's bent back already. That one obviously I haven't even touched yet, so I'm gonna have to be really careful of that. I don't know if that one's going to be acceptable or not. The number 3 looks like. But if we look down the line, you can see its hair goes down a hair more than the rest of them. So I don't know about that. So I'll try and get that one and then we'll test fit it. Okay, so they're both patched up. That one's not the greatest, but hey, it seals. So now if I take this and I line up to the two outer ones, you can see that that one there is maybe like a 32nd. This one again is like a 16th out. So that probably will be fine, you know, enough within flex. But I can see now that they line up way better than they did before. They're still probably a little bit off, but if I can hold still. Elsewise, I think it fits good enough. So I'm outside, it's dark, sorry about the lighting. But you can see the gas tank mounted in right here. And wow, it's very, very simply mounted. This took me forever to think of. So right here, I spent half an hour making this bracket with the exact right angle and side length, that when I place this down here, it's the same length as the frame. And this slight little angle that you see right there is the exact same angle of those threads that come out of the gas tank. Those threads are part of the gas tank. And then I realized, because I was having the gas tank mounted like this, and then I realized when I turn it sideways, it just slots right down in between the frame there. And you can see there's that little bit of a lip there. And I just found some of these bracket pieces and screwed it down. And I had gotten, you know, the drills out and everything to tap that bracket on. And then I realized, oh, there's already a hole there that's been tapped for 1/4. Yeah, that just kind of fits in there, and that's good and in there. And I can even grab the petcock right there. So nice and accessible. And you may think, oh, I don't have room there because there's a frame. Well, yeah, there is a frame, but there's conveniently a hole right where the petcock is. So that just comes right out. So that just kind of conveniently fit in there. So now, after wasting all that time welding up and cutting this bracket and everything that fits perfectly, when this fits even perfectly-er, now I just have to figure out a spot to mount this fuel pump. This is a 2 to 6 psi fuel pump, 12 volt, same as the rest of the circuit. So this is meant for carburetors, specifically like golf carts and stuff. And since we have 4 carburetors up there, I think that this should be plenty enough to fill all the bowls. Because remember, it's only filling it up to the bowls full, and then the float valve on the inside cuts it off. And this basically does nothing until that fuel is used up and it lets more fuel in. So I'm not worried about that, but I have to mount this to a spot lower than the tank. That way the fuel is always in here so I don't ever run this dry. So I will find a place for to mount this. Okay, so now I've shoved some more wire in here. I know it looks like a mess. I still have to zip tie it all up because I have to take this board out again, but you can see now that when I have the key on and I flip the run switch, this will do starter. I've now wired it so the fuel pump is connected to this and the 4-wheel drive is connected to this, the front hub. This is still on auxiliary. I haven't actually connected this at all, anything, and I just realized that says ACC2 and ACC2. That should say 3. Anyway, this was cheap, but I only need it really for the switches and buttons. But let me show you, look what I did down here. For one, I added these 2 positive and negative volt cables. They just go through the same screw down there. And these are just some quick connects that go down to the cable that runs all the way back down. That way, so I'm running the relays off of directly the 12-volt battery and not doing it through any of the other fuses. I have still yet to build the fuse panel for the push-button fuses for the front hubs and all that other stuff. I have yet to do that. But for the moment, I'm not totally worried about that. I also did some cable extensions. I've already zip-tied this all in, but I've extended this about 2 feet than it was before. And I've also, as you can see over here, I've tapped another screw mount for each side so these don't twist. The tank is fully in there, and I've also welded this extra bracket on and screwed on the fuel pump and put the filter in here. This is lower than the tank, so don't worry about this loop because if you'll come in, it'll just fall down. Might have a little bit of a pull down here, but since this is below the tank, whatever level the tank's at, this should all be full without any air. And then right here you can see the tube goes in, goes behind the shock, goes behind the fuse box and everything, and runs down all the way into the carbs down there with a clamp. Now if I turn on the key, power, and I'm gonna flick the fuel pump right here. You can hear that. I don't want to run it dry, but you can at least hear it. Also yesterday, since I fiddled with the exhaust, I got that back in there. It is just ratchet strapped up, as you can see right there. I still have yet to make the mounting points for that, but if I ran the engine for like, 10 seconds, that wouldn't really get hot. That would still be cold. Even if I ran it for 2 minutes, I'd probably still be cold. So now that I have the fuel pump running and everything, that's all mounted, all I have to do is pull choke, put some gas in it, and hit start. And so I think, I can at least get a test roll with the wheels off because it's jacked up right now. You can see. I just want to hear this thing idle one time before I put it away for today. There is 2 fuel filters. There's one in here and then there's one in the output, so I'm not worried about that. You can see that we have about 3/4 of a tank there. You can see that that's set to on and no fuel is coming in. Like there's a little puddle of air, but that should be like full. So something's wrong. Okay, what I think it is that there's so much air in the line that it's having a hard time escaping through the carb. So, I didn't think that was gonna be an issue, but let me turn on the fuel pump and see if it just kind of sucks some air in. Oh yeah, it's gushing. Oh, I can hear it filling up the carbs. I'm just gonna turn that off. That should be full now. I'm going to pull the choke. Run. I can't believe it. It sounds so different. Here's the throttle. Obviously the jetting is going to be wrong for the pod filters, but I had the fuel pump off, so it was just low on fuel, so, or at least fuel pressure. Oh, we're leaking fuel like a sieve. This right overflow is just leaking straight out. Or the left one isn't, but the right one definitely is. This is the right one. This would be really cool. I can't believe it idles perfect. I mean, with choke, obviously, but still. I can't believe that. That's really cool. I'm really excited. So I have a massive exhaust leak in the front so I am gonna have to fix that. Otherwise, the muffler tube, or the tube that goes to the muffler, being longer, makes it a deeper tone. It's actually really nice. Okay, so I guess I just have to make the exhaust mounts and tidy up some stuff, and then see if the thing can roll back and stuff. I'm an idiot. This thing is in the air. I can make it roll right now in the air. Okay, how about I put the other wheel on and see if this thing rolls back, because why not? Okay, so I'm going to clear this stuff away and move the camera and see what we can do. For one, ow! The two posts back here, because I took the back of the seat out, just shoves you right into your back. Oh my god. Well, I'd say that the clutch is unstuck. This isn't the real back seat. I accidentally cut the back seat in parts for when I built the tool to open the front diff in that video. That piece of wood, that's what that was. Let's give that a shot again. It's unusual to have cable to pull instead of a pedal. Okay, so I was hearing really bad clicking, and I just realized what that was. That was the chain coming untensioned and whacking some stuff, and that's because I never built the chain tensioner for right here. As you can see, that is flexible. So that thing was starting to flop around. I don't know if that's all it was, but it felt like something else, like something I really wasn't expecting. It felt like the frame was shifting or something. Then again, oh, I know what that is. It's the shocks. It can shake like crazy. But that's pretty insane. Oof. Okay, so chain tensioner, actual gas pedal, chain guard. Oh yeah, the brakes do absolutely nothing. I did figure out what it is, and it's because I use braided lines everywhere. Whenever you press the pedal, I'm actually expanding all the lines. I can actually see all the lines grow a little bit. So either I need to go out and get like steel line and replace all that, but this is original tubing, or this is tubing the replacement. It had to have at least worked, you know, someone designed it to work. So I imagine it's just my master cylinder is too small at this point. It's expanding all the lines before it can actually expand the brakes. It looks like I'm gonna have to change out the master cylinder. But otherwise, wow, that I guess postponing to actually get the engine running was worth it, because wow, that surprised. Okay, let me get some of the other stuff finished up. You may have saw there a second ago that I was trying to show it off for a video clip, and this guy wasn't fully disengaged when I try and put it in first. It started rolling. I was standing around right here, or a little bit further back, and since both my feet were next to each other, both legs got sucked under that big tire. Thankfully, there's not much weight in the rear, so both my legs just basically got ran over. Yeah, I would say that it has a lot of first gear torque at idle. I was surprised that it was just gonna click in like that and then just roll all the way up my leg. Yeah, I got a pretty good burn mark right there. Or at least, what is that? It's not carpet rash, but concrete rash, I guess. Yeah, I would say that we're not lacking power here. Quite happy. Very happy that the clutch has just started working now. Considering it's now under its own power, I want to pull this in. Trust me, I want to push it, but I also kind of want to drive it in, so. I actually did it! I actually did it! Okay, well, time to put stuff away, because I'm done. Okay, it's a little warm. So I might want to consider putting a fan on the oil cooler. So what I have next to get this done for this video is I need to finish the chain tensioner on the jack shaft. I need to finish mocking up. I need to rebend port number 3 back. I have a new idea to get that to fit better. I need to weld on the muffler mounts and everything like that and get that actually properly bolted in. And I need to get the battery box cover properly on, because right now it's still at that weird angle. I have to take the tire to get it on. That's just stupid, so I need to fix that. And then maybe just some other little things. And otherwise, I'm gonna call this done for this video. So I took off the exhaust from the rear, and you may see I have a hole right there. And you may think, oh no, I have a hole, I need to patch that. Nope, I just drilled that. And I have this M18 threaded bung that will go right there. And then I have this plug that will go in that bung. Now the reason why I'm just plugging this up right now is because the actual thing that's supposed to go in there I have sitting over there and is not yet ready. So if you know what this is, bonus points for you, because I'm going to be installing that very soon. Additionally, I made this bracket. This was the original bracket that held the muffler side on right here. But I welded this galvanized flat stock on with the perforated holes in it. That way, so now I can go under the rear of the frame and bolt this in. And then I can also, you know, tighten the muffler on. That way, so this will be my rear support. I still have my mount here for the front. I still have to make a mount on the frame for that. But this will be nice, quick, and easy for the rear, so I'm not ratchet strapping it up while I figure out that. So now I need to turn the argon on and weld that bung on that hole right there. That took a good second to get that muffler mount on there. But as you can see, I have a bolt that goes through the frame. There's the bracket that goes around and to the other side, bolts up to the frame again. And then as you can see right there, we have the clamping them together. And then that goes all the way down underneath and it tightens on there. I still have to make the bolt mount for that bracket right there, but for the second, that should be fine. And now I can remove this ratchet strap because it's not doing anything. So a little bit of progress. Also, when I start up the engine, I realized, you know how I have these 2 tubes? Exhaust gas comes in between these little guys right here. So somehow in the manifold down there, you know, where it combines them all back up, some of the gas goes up into that outer channel. No idea why. So either I need to enclose this to here, or I need to extend this size tubing, which remember I bought more of, go all the way up around and back up to there. I really don't want to do that because that's a lot of work, and this already took me forever to do and get aligned. I'll have to see. If I do weld it to here, I can always cut it off later. But if anybody knows why the exhaust gas comes back up the secondary little channel slit around it, let me know if it's important. If not, I'm just gonna cap that right there. I am gonna put the exhaust wrap around this stuff just because of all the heat sensitive items, aka the steering rack right here. And you know, just I think maybe it would look better. It's just a lot of area that's being covered up right now. But otherwise, it is still a one push wonder. Yeah. So let me put the wheels back on and lower this down. I also want to note, if you can see right in there, I welded a bolt in for this tensioner. That way so this jack shaft is nice and perpendicular to the chain and perpendicular to the frame of the vehicle. And that way, this is nice and taut. Don't have to worry about that. That spring is actually doing stuff. So now let's give it a test ride. I still don't have the throttle done, and it's because I think I'm going to change how I'm going to do the throttle. I don't know if you could tell, we have a little rock pile down here, and I'm glad that was there because it stopped me. Because those brakes are 20% of what they should be, 10-20%. I'm surprised it made it up like that in like a little bit over idle. That was like 2,000 RPM. So yeah, this thing can crawl. So it needs a little bit of carb tuning. I'm missing a little bit of power than I expected, but the idle is fantastic. So whatever idle jet size I have in there, keep that. I don't know if it's leaning out or what. I actually think it might be a little bit too rich because I threw the choke on and then it just died. I don't know. Then again, I did turn off the pulse pump because of the overpressure issue, so I could have just been low on gas. So I don't know, we'll just have to play with it a little bit and find out. But honestly though, now that the wiring is at least there, you know, I need to clean that up still, and the drivetrain work, brakes semi work, the muffler, all that manifold is on, the gas tank is on. In fact, I turn the key, fuel pump, and the fact that it just runs, I would say this engine hasn't run since I took it out of the Bandit this long ago. It's been at least a year. Regardless, I would say that it is running decent enough to call it the end of this video. We got the gauges on, we got the dashboard on, we cut and extended the entire front manifold, we made the mounts for it, we cut and chopped up the rear muffler mount, got that all in, put our tank in, got our fuel pump in, did all the wiring, put it all in looms and everything, made this rat's nest up here that I still have to deal with. Also, the second switch for the front wheel drive hubs is enabled, but I do need to finish filling them up with fluid properly, you know, before we do anything else. And I guess in the next video or so, what I need to do is finish tidying up the throttle. I need to fix that brake. I'm probably going to do the drive-by-wire for the throttle, probably also for the choke, just because I already built that system for the other project, so might as well use it. So yeah, I'm quite happy with driving around the little bit I have. So thank you for watching. I hope you stay on this series because a lot more is yet to come with it. Again, I want to design a body for this, maybe fiberglass, do something like that, because I have another 2 projects that are fiberglass. One that's already almost done that's fiberglass. So if you have an idea for a body shape for this, let me know, put in the comments. There's a Discord, so if you want to talk more about this or any of the other projects I do, please join, links in the description. Thank you for watching.